Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Photographic Steve vlog. In this episode I want to look back to assignment 1 and just talk a little bit about the influences that drove that and what came out of that, because that really was the seed of all the changes that have happened over the last 8 months. So I started digital image and culture in January of 2020 this year, with a horribly accelerated timescale caused by the fact that I'm running out of time to finish level 2, and so I picked up this course and I dived into it with both feet, knowing that I had to get things done on certain dates, and I had some fairly aggressive timescales to fit. So assignment 1 was based around digital art. It was looking at collage and digital manipulation, and the differences between the ways in which this has happened over the years. And so I was prompted initially to look at the sort of the collage art, the stuff that was done by the likes of Hannah Hock and people like that. And if you want to see who all these artists were, there's some examples of that kind of stuff. They're all on my website, and there's a little bit of a talk about each one on the Photographic Steve website under the assignment 1 banner. So I studied a number of different sort of collage style artists, and got quite fascinated by it. Actually, back in 2012, I think it was 12 or 13, it was quite early, I went to see a Hannah Hock exhibition at the Whitehall Gallery, as I've mentioned that before. This was an exhibition of her Dada work, and at the time I thought it was sort of a bit mad, really. I didn't really get any of it. I couldn't see the point in it. But to be honest with you, that's just pure ignorance, because on reflection, having studied this stuff for this assignment, I think I'm somewhat in love with it all now, and I love the things that people have done. And if you look at some of these pieces of work that I'm showing here now, there's really exciting ways in which people have made collages in the past, particularly before the advent of Photoshop. Now, clearly, as time's gone by, there's cleverer and cleverer ways to do things. And some of the art that I absolutely love is represented by a lot of these digital artists. Some of these were already firm favourites of mine, and some of them I discovered anew while doing this. And some of this work is just stunning. The way they've actually composited some of this stuff together in Photoshop and made these absolutely incredible pictures. This is stuff I absolutely aspire to. I love every single one of these pieces of work. You probably spot in the bottom right hand corner there's a Brooke Shaden. It wouldn't be a piece of work without her in there, would it? But there are other people on here that I'd not really studied before. And I discovered that there was something about all of these pictures, a kind of a professional feel I couldn't put my finger on. And I've known this existed for a long time, but never really known what it was. And in the process of doing this, there's a painterly feel that they all have, a certain sharpness. There's another image on my website which is a picture of a group of people standing at an armoured car. It has the same sort of feel to it, and I couldn't tell you what it was at the time. I think that I've identified some of it. Some of it is because they put textures and patterns and stuff over the top of it, but that doesn't do it all alone. And I discovered the beauty of digital noise. Now, when I say digital noise, I mean film noise, but done digitally. I don't mean digital noise. The actual digital noise that you get from a camera from too high an ISO is a very ugly thing. It puts coloured spots and all sorts of stuff all over your image. It's not very nice at all. But in the old days of black and white, they used to put grain over the top of their images. And so in Photoshop, in the Camera Raw module, there's a film grain filter. And that actually adds some of what's happening in these pictures to your picture. It's a very subtle thing. You can overdo it and it looks horrible. But it's definitely something I've been playing with, and I shall play with further into the future, is this idea of adding a digital grain to the pictures to get this subtle effect. So my mind was buzzing at the beginning of this this assignment, what was I going to do with all of this? And I got more and more into the idea of working with the work of Boris Vallejo, because he's an artist. He does do digital art now, but for most of his life he's been a paint and canvas, pen and ink type artist, a real proper artist, if you like, something I very much aspire to be, but probably never will be. I can cope with the digital art, but I'm not very good at putting it on paper with paint and what have you. I wish I was. However, I digress. So thinking about doing work on the likes of Boris Vallejo's work, I started looking at some of Boris Vallejo's work. This is the crucifixion of Conan from one of his book covers, and it's a sort of it's quite a dark image, but it's a typical Boris Vallejo style image. I wondered if I could recreate these images in my own way using my 3D imaging software, DAZ Studio, my face-off techniques to put other people's faces on these images, and kind of combine that sort of photography face-off thing with digital art and make not the same images but recreations of these images in a similar manner. Now, whilst I was thinking about this, I was looking at the collage and the digital, and the assignment calls for you to create 4 images of each. So the idea was I would create 4 images as collages, actually cut, paint, stick, glue the pieces together to make a physical collage in homage to 4 Boris Vallejo pieces, and then I would make 4 homages to Boris Vallejo using all the digital techniques that I have at hand. So the first one was this, the crucifixion of Conan, and the one I created was this. Now this is all done with found images. So I found images all over the internet, and I cut them out and I stuck them together to make this image. Now it's not the same, it's not identical, it's not meant to be. It's a collage made from stuck out bits of paper. I had to cut his legs and his knees up and move them around to put them in place. So it really is, it's more like the Dada images than it is the digital art stuff that I normally do. But it was quite fun to do, and it was quite difficult to work out how to create the image that you were looking at from Boris Vallejo using all this cut and stick technique. And I was quite pleased with this as a result in the end of the day. So what I did was I found these images on the internet, I printed them out on my colour printer, and I cut out pieces, and I made the image as best I could as a cutout, as a collage, and this was the result of the first one. The second image I decided to recreate was this one, another Boris Vallejo picture. I think this one actually is from his wife Julie, but it's a beautiful image of an Amazonian warrior on the back of a horse on some foreign planet, with a sort of a foreign landscape and a very fantasy background and feel to it. There's a battle going on in the background, as you can see. And so I decided that I would pick this one for my next one, and I was really pleased with the end result. This collage, it's hard to see it's an actual collage if you look at it. It's got a very similar vibe going on, so it's not exactly the same, it's not meant to be. But I cut it all into layers and I layered it back. So for this image I found a background image. I found an image of a moon. I cut I printed 2 of the background images, and I cut I had the sky from the original background image, and I cut the mountains out separately, and as you can see I've pasted over some of the mountains over the top of the moon to put that in there. Then I found a horse picture which I cut out and put on the thing. Then I found a girl riding in a skirt that fitted the need, and I cut her out and put her on top of the horse. And the sword was a separate cutout put in to actually create. Let's just go back and look at the Boris Vallejo for a moment. You can see it's not the same, but similar. It's on the same vein. It's definitely an homage too. But I was really pleased with this. I mean, as a collage cut and paste sticky one, it's maybe not collagey enough. In terms of the Dada stuff, it's not very Dada-like, is it? I mean, it's Dada method, but it's not sort of absurd and surreal like a lot of the Dada stuff is. It's more faithful to the original than perhaps the first one was. The next one I picked was this beautiful sort of dragon stroke wyvern sitting on a cliff. I thought, what a lovely thing to create a picture of. Now, there aren't too many found pictures of dragons without actually cutting out another fantasy artist's picture of a dragon, which would really kind of defeat the purpose. So I was looking really for pictures of things that I could cut out and create something similar. And so this is what I found. It's a combination of bats, a lizard, and a horse to make a dragon sort of leaping. It's not the same by any means, but it's a lot. It's in keeping with the other image, and I was actually quite pleased with it. And I did colour the pictures I found all blue to give it all a blue tone. So I tinted the pictures so that we would get the same colour for everything, because it looked really quite wacky with the real colours. But I quite like that blue tint that's over the top of everything. So I literally took all the images off the internet, put a blue filter over the top of all of them, and then printed them out, cut them out, and made this picture. The next one, I really struggled with this one, making it, bizarrely. Finding a picture of a beetle is not easy, not in that sort of style anyway. So in this one we've got this very kind of bronzed, muscly kind of guy. It's a sort of very classic Boris Vallejo. All the people, the men and the women, are all very sort of bronzed and muscly, and they look like they could cut the head off a dragon with one swipe. And this guy's riding his beetle out of a volcano or something by the look of that. And so my response to this was this one. It's not my favourite, but it kind of does the thing. You got the volcano going off in the background. It's hard to see that that's a beetle, but it's actually standing on a beetle. And there he is, all muscly, holding his war axe. So it kind of works for me. It was okay for the fourth one. Having done the 4 collage ones, I decided I wanted to go into the digital ones and actually practice the stuff that I've been playing with. So what I did was I took pictures of people. So each of the 4 pictures has got a different person as the model, and I've used their face and rendered it onto a 3D model of a person, and then created the scene doing that. So it's a mixture of the 3D animation stuff, photographs of people, and some digital art and blending in Photoshop afterwards. So the first one I decided to tackle was the classic Conan standing on the sort of the pile of bodies with the girl holding on to his leg. For non-obvious reasons, I guess, I decided to use my own face in this one, and this is what I got. Now, I was actually quite pleased with this. So this was quite interesting. I made a pile of bodies in Daz Studio. I made a Conan-like body, and I put my face on it, and I did it all up, and it was standing there like that. The background is actually a bit of art that I created myself by painting in Photoshop. So the skull and all the smoke and everything else is my digital painting. And I was well chuffed with this, because the background turned out really well, I think. So if we go back and look at the Boris Vallejo, yeah, okay, his work is phenomenal, but the actual representation of it I was really pleased with, and as a piece of digital art I absolutely love it. The next piece of Boris Vallejo work I decided to work on was the flying dragon with a girl on his back. A classic piece of fantasy art. Can I recreate a dragon flying through the air with a girl riding on his back? So for this, the model was actually my daughter Laura. And there she is, sitting on the back of a dragon flying through the air. I created all the rocks and the sea and everything in Daz Studio as an environment. The dragon and the body were all rendered, and the weapons were all rendered in Daz Studio as a 3D model. My daughter Laura's photograph was used as a mesh to wrap the actual face of the person in, and then all the sky and the background was painted in Photoshop afterwards. The next image was the classic wolf image. This is actually a Julie, Boris Vallejo's wife, did this, not Boris himself, but they kind of work together these days. But it's in the same genre and it worked well. I felt it fit well into the part, and I think it's an amazing picture, actually, amazing piece of art. And people do seem to love wolves, don't they? So it's a bit of a spacey fantasy piece of work with wolves and this person. So for this, I actually took a picture of my friend's girlfriend, and I used her face on the reconstruction. She was over the moon because I let her have a copy, and we ended up with this. So there is my version of the same thing, with the wolves. They were created in Daz's studio. The body was created in Daz's studio. The rock that's running out with the pillar at the back of it is all part of a 3D studio environment. All the bits were made separately and put together in Photoshop. And obviously it's got the face of Angela, my friend's girlfriend, on it. And then the skyscape, starry background and moon and everything else I painted in Photoshop using brushes and actually digital art to paint. And I was really pleased with that. That turned out really well, actually. It's one of the better ones. And then the next one I did was this classic Boris Vallejo of the sort of fallen angel. For this I used my daughter Claire. I'm less happy with the result on this one. I think it's not quite right. And it's one of those ones I should go in and do it again if I had time. Unfortunately, time is not something I have at all when it comes to digital image and culture because of the time frames, but who knows, this might turn up in future projects at level 3 or something. I don't know what's happening there yet. But this is my fallen angel with Claire's face sitting there with her wings and on the fiery background. The body and the rock she's sitting on and some of the background rocks I created as an environment in Daz's studio, and the rest of the background and the fire was all done with painting and fire brushes and stuff in Photoshop. So that was the submission that I made for assignment 1, and really it's the reasoning behind it was the whole idea of taking an artist like Boris Vallejo and his wife Julie, and doing an homage to them, recreating some of their work using these techniques of physical collage and digital collage, as we studied in part 1 of this module, and using those to bring them together to create these homages to the Boris Vallejo's work. I'm really happy with the way they turned out. I hope you enjoy them too. Thank you for watching this episode of the Photographic Steve vlog. If you enjoyed it, I hope to see you again on the next episode. Thank you.